Hi my friends, today I'm going to show you how to make the pattern for it as well as sew up these bespoke trouser pockets that are as nice on the inside as they are on the outside. The first thing that we need to do is draw on this shape on the front leg of our trouser pattern. First up, we need to decide how wide we want our pocket opening to be. I went for 4 centimeters. Next time I think I would probably go a little bit wider than that. Next I'm going to draw a line from that marking all the way to the edge of the trouser leg. I'm making mine 15 centimeters. You could make yours a little bit shorter or a little bit longer if you want that. Here I'm just drawing a line parallel to the grain line that marks the width of my pockets, and I draw that all the way down to my hip line, but not any further than that, because if you let your pockets go too far down, they will end up being a little bit too bulky. And then I'm just going to curve my pockets all the way down to the crotch depth line, but you can make it a little bit shorter or maybe a tad bit longer if you want, but not too much. And sorry for the angle guys, but yeah, I'm just carving it so that it looks like a nice pocket shape. And now we're ready to trace around the shape to make our pattern pieces. First up, I'm going to trace around here, excluding the little triangular shape on the side. Remember to also mark the grain line. Now, because we usually don't use our nice fabric as a pocket bag, we're going to split this pattern piece in two. That way we can just cut the small pattern piece in our nice fabric and the other one in the lining, and we end up with a less bulky pocket. So trace around the small part of the pocket, and then it's important to name your pattern pieces so you don't forget what they are and where they belong. So I wrote on mine pocket A1, cut one pair in main fabric, and then when I have a name for my pattern I will also put that name on the pattern piece so I know which pattern this pocket belongs to. Then we can go ahead and add seam allowance. I'm using 1.5 centimeter seam allowance for all of the sides except the very top one where I'm using just 1 centimeter. And then we can go ahead and cut out the two pattern pieces that we have. Before we can go ahead and do the exact same thing, only this time we're going to trace around this part of the pocket, including the little triangular shape at the corner. I've marked the place where the triangular shape is, and I use my ruler to go 2 centimeters inside of that because I don't want the lining to be visible whenever the pocket is a little bit open. This is the part of the pocket that's going to be visible from the outside, and so we're just going to trace around that and then add the seam allowance to all of the parts. Again, 1.5 centimeter seam allowance on all of the sides except the very top one. And now we just need to add the seam allowance where the pocket is going to be sewn on, and then just trim away the excess. Now this next step is not strictly necessary, but I like to make a pattern piece for the interfacing that's going to be ironed on the front of the leg. You could just use a strip of interfacing and then just iron it on, but I like it to be precise to match the pattern that I'm working on. Now that we have all our pattern pieces, we're ready to cut out this pattern piece in interfacing, these two in lining, and these two in the main fabric. And here we have all of our pattern pieces we'll be needing for the pockets. I do recommend starting by making a stay stitch around this curve, just to make sure that it doesn't stretch out when we'll be working with this pattern piece quite a lot. Now that that's out of the way, the next step is to iron on the interfacing pattern piece on the front trouser blocks. So iron that on the wrong side. I like to use a pressing cloth for this to protect my iron from the glue that's on the interfacing. The next thing to do is to sew these two pattern pieces along here, but because we want our pockets to be nice on the inside as well as on the outside, we're going to sew them wrong sides together. And it's okay that one of the pattern pieces is a little bit longer, it's supposed to be like that, but on the 1.5 centimeter mark, they are going to match. So just make sure that they match at the edge on the 1.5 centimeter mark, which is where you'll be sewing. Now we need to trim away half of the seam allowance on the lining fabric before pressing the seam allowance open and then over towards the lining. Pressing the seam allowance that we didn't trim over to the seam line, encasing the raw edge like this. Taking this over to our sewing machine, we're going to move our needle over a little bit and then edge stitch this little flap down. Give it a good press and repeat the process for the pocket on the other side, and you will be left with two pocket pattern pieces that look like this on the right side and this on the wrong side. Repeat the process on these pattern pieces and you'll be left with two pairs of pieces that looks quite similar, but as you can see, the one to the right has its corner cut off, and that's the one that we're going to work on next. So grab one of those pieces and align it with the front panel of your trouser, right sides together like this. Sew along this edge with 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. As always, press flat first and then press the seam allowance towards the pocket. We're going to understitch along here, catching the seam allowance underneath. To secure the edge, you can do a zigzag stitch. It won't be seen from the inside of the garment. Give everything a good press and fold the pocket underneath the trouser. If you have any darts or pleats on the front leg of your trouser, now is a good time to secure them down. Change the color of the thread to match the pocket lining. Now we're going to sew the pocket bag together, so grab your other pocket piece, the one with a triangular shape, and place it on top of the pocket piece that we have sewn together with the front leg of our trouser. Make sure that you place them wrong sides together and sew along the edge with 7.5 millimeters seam allowance. That's half of the seam allowance that we have for this bag, because we're going to use a French seam to secure the bag together. You can stop the seam once you reach the end of the lining of both of the pocket pieces. Press the seam flat, but as you can see, when I press my seam flat here, it still has a little bit of puckering to it. This is because the lining fabric is thinner than the other fabric, and I should have tested the tension on it on my sewing machine before sewing the pocket bag. So please learn from my mistakes and do that. It could also help to adjust the stitch length to a shorter stitch length. Anyways, press the seam open and do your best around the corners. I like to use the edge of the little ironing board that I have. It's just to make it easier to push the bag right side out, which is what we'll be doing next, making sure we get the seam all the way to the edge and pressing it flat again. Now turn it wrong sides out again and trim away half of the seam allowance. Turn it right sides out again, give it one more good press, and then sew again with 7.5 millimeters seam allowance. Once again, press the seams flat, turn the front leg so that the right side is facing you, and make sure the pocket is laying neatly underneath. To make the trousers easier to sew together afterwards, we're going to secure the pocket in place on the top and on the side. but make sure that you sew within the seam allowance so that the stitches won't show on the outside of the final garment. And that's it. This is how I like to create pockets that are as nice on the inside as they are on the outside. I hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!